so much. At this time, I'd like to invite David Bucas from the Federal Home Loan Bank, Pittsburgh.
Thank you, and good afternoon. On behalf of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, I want to thank you all for the commitment you made to today's discussion. Can anybody hear me? There you go. How's that? Is it better? So hopefully you found the information that we presented this morning valuable. I sense there's, from the questions that have been asked, there's a certain amount of energy being generated, and I want to certainly thank our panelists for the information that they've presented this morning as well. The bank is very happy to be part of the sponsorship of today's event, and it is our hope that the exchange of ideas today, including the generation of new ideas, will provide a real good foundation for continuing dialogue on this issue of sustainable communities. And later today, you're going to hear from Trish Kelleher about the Delaware Community Development Network, which we think the bank thinks that that's another great platform for continuing the dialogue on these issues, and hopefully actually moving some of the dialogue, some of the discussion to action and creating more sustainable communities here in Delaware. It is also my privilege today to introduce our keynote speaker, Paul Weech. Paul is the President and Chief Executive Officer of NeighborWorks America. And I'm not going to read Paul's biography. You can certainly do that. It is provided there in your program booklet. And when you do that, what you're going to see is that Paul has had a very distinguished career, and it's a career that demonstrates a definite commitment to public service. So thank you, Paul, for your service. But rather than focusing my introductory remarks on what he has done, I'd rather focus on what he and his organization has yet to do. And not to put any pressure on him, but I'd like to think that his greatest accomplishments are ahead of him as the leader of NeighborWorks America. Now, NeighborWorks America is a great organization that traces its history back to the 1960s with the start of the first NeighborWorks organization in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact. And it is an organization that has grown today into a network of 240 NeighborWorks organizations operating in urban, suburban, and rural communities in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. And we are actually fortunate that here in Delaware we have two NeighborWorks organizations, Interfaith Community Housing and NCAL Research, both of whom I think are represented here today here at today's event. Over the last 5 years, those 240 NeighborWorks organizations have generated more than $19 billion in reinvestment in the communities that they serve. And NeighborWorks America is a leading trainer of community development and affordable housing professionals. So true to their core mission, the folks working in NeighborWorks organizations are dedicated to building strong, resilient communities. So our speaker today, as head of the NeighborWorks America organization, is uniquely qualified to talk to us about the promise, the potential, and the power of local community organizations to affect change in their communities, which is what today is all about. So please welcome Paul Weech.
Bit shorter. I tend to wander around up here, kind of trying to look at the audience and stuff. So if I move too far away from the mic, just wave your hand and I'll try and focus and get centered back here on the mic. I want to thank David for that nice introduction. It's the tyranny of not coordinating our remarks in advance. Thank you for taking away most of my speech on NeighborWorks. But thanks to David and the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh. Thank you to the Fed. Thank you to the CINAIR for sponsoring this event today. It's great to see. I have many friends in the room. It was an easy drive over from D.C. It's really great to be here. But it's particularly great to be here because I think Delaware may be one of my favorite states. I lived for a year in Wilmington as I was getting ready to go over to work in West Africa many years ago. My mom and dad lived out their days in Hockessin, which is in Cokesbury Village, which is right there north of Wilmington. And every summer before she passed, I'm getting teary, Mom would bring us all together down to the beach at Bethany, and we'd get a big house, and the 16 of us would all gather around. Some of my most fond memories. And in fact, next weekend I'm coming back to, or not next weekend, geez, day after tomorrow, driving back down here for a wedding in Rehoboth. So it's a great state, and I'm really happy to be here. Let me just real quick get some energy in the room, get to know my audience. How many nonprofit leaders? How many practitioners, housing community development practitioners? Financial institutions? Researchers? Residents, resident advocacy community? Good, yeah, I'm not going to change my remarks. It looks like I got most of the audience right here. All right, so anyways, as I said, David kind of took a little bit of the wind out of my sails, but I thought, for those of you that don't know NeighborWorks America, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about us, who we are, and where we come from. NeighborWorks America is a congressionally chartered 501c3. So we were created by an act of Congress in 1978. And as David said, we were created to support and create neighborhood-based nonprofits around the country. At the time were called Neighborhood Housing Services. They were generally, the model was a community-based organization that was a partnership between the residents, the civic, the public sector, and the financial services sector. And it was really coming out of the pressure at the time under CRA to figure out how we get more credit into neighborhoods and fix up communities. Today, NeighborWorks America supports a network of 247. I'm going to head out to Michigan next week to charter our 247th organization in Flint, Michigan. As David said, we have organizations in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia. They are serving, some of them are still neighborhood-based, but some of them have gone regional or statewide, multiple counties. It's an eclectic mix of organizations. Susan Frank, my good friend from Sinair, with whom at my lunch, was talking to me about her business or about Sinair and thinking about home ownership funds, but not really in the home ownership business. And the nature of her question said to me that one of the things I've experienced as the head of NeighborWorks America is people think of us as a home ownership organization. But our network, our 250 organizations, cover the whole range of different businesses that the community development sector is in today. Last year, our rental housing, our groups in total did $2 billion of rental housing production. We have CAP agencies that are administering a wide array of social service programs. We got small business lenders. We've got 217 that are doing something in the healthcare field. It's an eclectic mix, and it's exciting to watch the nonprofit sector that we touch every day and how it's changing. By the way, I did prepare a slide deck here, but I decided with the logistics here, it's just as easy to give my remarks. The slide deck's available. Sydney and the team can get you copies if you want it. There's not much more information in that than what I'm presenting. It's just an outline of what I'm trying to say today, but it's got nice pictures. NeighborWorks America, also relevant to the folks in this room, we also support the broader housing community development sector in a wide variety of ways. One of the best examples of that is in 2008, in the midst of the foreclosure crisis, Congress asked us to administer something called the National Foreclosure Mitigation Counseling Program. It was set up to help families that were facing foreclosure using anti-foreclosure counseling techniques and stuff. We have just announced the 10th round of NFMC. Since 2008, we have put more than $800 million on the street and served over 2 million families facing foreclosure. So it's a big deal, and it went out to the broader sector. Another example that David mentioned is we're a national leader in providing training to the sector. Our signature training programs are our NeighborWorks Training Institutes, which we do 4 times a year. These are a big logistic deal. We take over 3 hotels. We have every meeting room, every meeting space. We have to do food contracts and all that attend to that. About 2,000 people attend our training institutes. And I had no idea when I was coming to NeighborWorks about the scale and the scope, but I particularly got blown away to then learn that we also do place-based trainings. So partners will, like a housing finance agency, will invite us in for a couple of days of capacity building, say for nonprofits, or a financial institution will have us organize a training for their loan officers who want to do emerging markets or community reinvestment stuff. Last year, we did almost 3 trainings a week under the place-based training stuff, which it was a big scale. It's amazing. We did last year 20,000 different certificates for training. serving people, housing professionals from more than 3,000 organizations. All this is to say that I've been blown away by the scope and the scale of what NeighborWorks does, and very, very proud of the organization that I've been able to lead here for less than a year and a half. So we're currently working on our next 5-year plan, and we've adopted a North Star that will say to the effect, every community in America should be a place of opportunity. And so what I would like to do today is talk about what it is to create places of opportunity. And what's interesting about the statement, every community in America should be a place of opportunity, is it gets right at the core of one of the big debates in the community development field now. And that is the kind of the debate between those that believe we should provide opportunities for people to move to opportunity. And you see this playing out in the qualified allocation plans for many of the state agencies. They're defining what a place of opportunity is and trying to make sure that some of the allocations of their state tax credit or the low-income housing tax credits go to those places of opportunities. And juxtaposed against that are the placemakers, those of us, the community-based organizations, those of us like NeighborWorks that have been about places all of our rights, and how do we bring opportunity to the places where we've always worked. The truth of the matter is it shouldn't be a debate. We need to do both as a society, and the problem is we don't have enough resources to do both. But the focus on all of this now is is particularly elevated because of a study by Dr. Raj Chetty at Stanford University that took another look at the HUD Moving to Opportunity program that was implemented at about the time when I was working in Congress more than 20 years ago. And what Dr. Chetty did is he went back and he found those kids that had moved to opportunity, and having a large data set of tax returns was able to compare those kids today, 20 years later, with the kids who had stayed behind in those communities. And lo and behold, moving to opportunity actually did have effect on their life outcomes and their incomes. But at the same time, what Dr. Chetty really did, though, with all of his data, was not really make the case that we need to move everybody to a place of opportunity, but he began to outline some of the factors that attributed to the success of those kids, and therefore starts to give a roadmap for those of us doing place-based interventions about what things we need to bring to the communities in which we're working to achieve the same kind of opportunities and outcome for the kids we care about. So with my remarks today, I really want to explore I've titled my remarks, Creating Places of Opportunity. I'd like to explore the elements of placemaking and discuss some of the new paradigms, new learnings, new approaches that are coming to bear on this challenge. It's a work in progress. We've much to learn, much work to do, but in some ways it's an embrace of the community development field. Dr. Chetty's work identified 5 factors. So he had a big, complicated econometric algorithm, but he found correlations with the outcomes if communities had, first and foremost, no surprise, good schools. He found correlation with family structures. If the community as a whole had a higher incidence of 2-parent families, the kids tended to do better. He came up with a measure of social capital. So a community that had social capital generally was correlated with better outcomes. Access to transportation, which I assume is also a proxy for access to employment, and also income diversity were the 5 elements that he highlights that came out of why he thinks the kids who moved under Moving to Opportunity had better incomes today. Our experience in NeighborWorks suggests it's a lot more than those 5 factors, but it's a place to start that's based on large data and empirical results. No surprise for the folks in this room that too many communities lack the elements of opportunity. The challenge for all of us is what we can do to turn the schools around, increase public safety, provide access to jobs. And the answer falls for me, where I'm doing a lot of my thinking today, is under the rubric of comprehensive community development. The new paradigms of comprehensive community development, some people have defined another term of collective impact models, but basically what we're talking about is where the various sectors come together and pursue a common goal, like a health outcome for the community or elevating high school graduation rates. I'm working on a concept, the collective impact has some challenges to it in the sector. I'm working on a concept that I'm calling complementary investment. That's a little less about coordination and meetings and MOUs, but it's about partners deciding on what places where they're going to intervene and getting the partners to agree that we're going to focus here and bring what we do best to that community. But first and foremost, I still think there's a coordinating role here, and the first and foremost, comprehensive community development starts with strong nonprofit leaders who play the role that's been coined in the field of a community quarterback or a backbone institution that can lead the planning and the coordination, and these are strong nonprofits that excel at partnering, at keeping the community's interests front and center through the development process, and are skilled at deploying community capital. Increasingly, groups in the NeighborWorks network are stepping up and playing this role. We want to call them community catalysts, and I'll highlight some of these later. So as we think again about the elements of opportunity communities, I lost a page here. No, I didn't. As we think about the elements of community opportunities, there's a huge human capital component. And I'm particularly focused on Dr. Chetty's research suggesting that how important social capital is in creating communities opportunity. NeighborWorks America, and again, this was another place where I would have coordinated with David a little bit better, has a strong historical commitment to resident engagement. Our origin story starts with a neighborhood advocate leader in Pittsburgh named Dorothy Richardson. To this day, we celebrate community leaders at an annual award ceremony and give them the Dorothy Richardson Award. But it was Dorothy Richardson who saw underinvestment in her community and created the first neighborhood housing service. To this day, as an organization, we remain deeply committed to resident engagement. We require any member of our network to have resident representatives on their boards. We fund community engagement programs through our grant programs. And as I just signaled, every fall we do a weekend-long Community Leadership Institute where we pay to bring in 1,000 leaders from the country in groups of 5 where they work together on projects that they then take back to their communities, working with our NeighborWorks organizations. And of course, again, I'm speaking to the converted here, but the residents have to be involved in the future of their community. It's if we do this, the irony here is if we do this community development work right, we're creating communities where people want to live. And if there are places where people want to live, the demand for the housing goes up, the prices of the housing go up, and there's a risk that the people that we're doing community development in the name of get displaced or affected in negative ways by our success. And so by having residents in on the planning at the beginning of a community development exercise, we at least mitigate the risk by, say, having home ownership strategies where more existing residents can benefit from the housing appreciation we expect, or by locking in the affordable housing when the new investment may drive up rents. I heard from the terrific panel before lunch, another element I had as we think about what the elements of opportunity communities are is about the physical stock. I was pleased that they were talking about the success measures evaluation, that one of the things we ask residents when we do the community surveys is, what's going on with the physical stock? But it seems that it's very important that at the very first steps in this community revitalization, creating opportunity communities, is getting rid of the negative externalities, eliminating the blight, cleaning up the trash. These are the minimum steps, and it starts there. But with these interventions, they feed the community's image of itself and then creates the predicate for investments, both by the existing residents in their own homes and own properties as we clean up a community, but also by newcomers who can bring in new capital and new investment. We've done a lot of work in NeighborWorks with community marketing strategies, where we work with the residents to identify the assets in their community that lead then to marketing plans that are aimed at trying to attract investment into the communities. I'm beginning, another place where I'm doing work as we think about communities opportunity, is I'm beginning to think of a hierarchy similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs for individuals. And it seems to me that once we meet the basics of creating some sort of a sense of security in the community and stabilizing the real estate markets, that we can also dream of community self-actualization, open space, community centers, arts and culture to enrich the community. Check my time. Good, I'm all right. Anyways, as I already said, my theory of community change starts with organizations that can do the work. For community development and for most public programs, I strongly believe that we need to focus more on building the quality of the delivery system. I start as not just because of where I stand, but because of my long experience in the housing community development field, as a huge proponent of the nonprofit model for leading community development work. Nonprofits are often mission-aligned with the public sector, but they have flexibilities that sometimes elude the public sector in actually delivering the services. I also don't, by focusing on nonprofits, don't preclude the role of the private sector. We need private capital in communities of opportunity. Private businesses are investors, they're employers. We need community necessities like grocery stores and community amenities like coffee shops that make places more livable. I believe in markets. It's about nonprofit role in ensuring equity. The second thing, so as we focus on the delivery system, we then want to look at nonprofits that are able to scale up and able to become more social entrepreneurial. I'm a strong believer in social enterprise models. In part, we need to battle against the negative perception that we often face both from private sector partners and public sector partners of nonprofits being weak and not having the capacity to deliver these services. Too often I run into, as I move around the country, I run into people who equate a nonprofit to a well-meaning organization but with a very small staff doing its accounting out of shoe boxes. In fact, the nonprofit sector is growing and emerging. The capacity is getting stronger every day. I'm looking at my friends at Sinair here. It's a terrific nonprofit. It's an example of the kind of social enterprise that has emerged in the nonprofit sector. These are nonprofits that are strong, sophisticated, well-managed, and capable. Many of them have been highlighted here. And we at NeighborWorks are committed to supporting both the nonprofits in our network and then through our training and capacity building to help the nonprofit sector as a whole with their successes and growth. But the key to that growth is a greater focus on social enterprise. And by social enterprise, I mean building stronger scale nonprofits by applying business acumen in pursuit of the mission. It's about growing earned revenues, leveraging private capital, managing costs. It's about learning the skills of marketing and sales. And scalable and replicable social enterprises are the pathway to growing our nonprofit sector so that it is of the scale commensurate with the problems that we're trying to address and solve. Secondly, always, we focus on the delivery system. I'm a huge believer in networks. The benefits of networks are enormous. Through networks, nonprofit organizations are able to interact with their peer organizations, solve problems collaboratively, and share best practices. I've seen the networks I've been involved in, I've seen innovations rapidly disseminated throughout where organizations can quickly adapt them rather than have to develop them themselves. More interestingly, we've seen the power of networks to support social entrepreneurship as groups come together to share services, sharing back office costs, creating efficiencies by virtual scale, raising capital together at scale. And then one really interesting is sort of franchising their innovations to their fellow groups. So one innovation that came into the NeighborWorks network several years ago was an online homebuyer education curriculum called eHome America. Today, more than 100 organizations in the network offer eHome to their home buying customers and earn a fee on it. That's great. Likewise, a new innovative product is coming out of Brownsville, Texas. It was a loan product designed to combat payday lending that is a huge success in Texas, and now groups in Baltimore, Indiana, Missouri, and Louisiana are looking about adopting the same product on kind of a franchise basis. The third thing that you've heard a lot about today that is sort of a blinding flash of the obvious are delivery system strategies. Delivery system strategies, excuse me, are cross-sector collaborations. And it's obvious that we as community developers don't have all the skills and expertise and resources we need to meet all of the needs of our communities. And so the key is to find strong partners who can help us do that. I was interestingly at an event recently about the city of Detroit, where Mayor Duggan and the CEO and chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase were speaking. And the last questioner asked the two speakers, there's an upcoming election, you get a chance to visit with the president. So what's the one thing you would tell the president that he or she needs to do to address distressed communities around the country? And Mr. Diamond answered, his advice was, it's not one thing, which would hit me so soundly, I have to repeat it. It's not one thing. For low-income communities, it's many things. And the key to comprehensive community development strategies is how do we bring the pieces together to address them simultaneously. So I believe in the role of community catalysts. Right before lunch, you had a panel that had included a couple of great community catalysts who are pulling the pieces together, working with partnering well, identifying the resources, amalgamating the resources, leveraging capital. We've got two great community catalysts here in Delaware, NCAL and Interfaith. NCAL was integral in creating the Revitalizing or Restoring Central Dover initiative, big cross-sector partnership, huge element of resident engagement in doing that. Terrific leader in Joe Meyer. Enjoyed meeting Karen today. Got a couple of other representatives from NCAL. Nice to meet those folks. Interfaith, the example I had brought about their cross-sector collaboration was the Creative District in Wilmington, which was where the strategy was to bring together creative class, not just artists and musicians, but also designers and tech innovators to create a certain sense of community. And then, of course, apropos of what I said earlier, and affordable housing to make sure that the community remained economically diverse. I'm coming up on the end of my time. Just one other example of a community catalyst who I just really love. It's an organization in just outside St. Louis called Beyond Housing. So Beyond Housing basically has been working with the city of Pagedale. There's an intersection where they put a grocery store on one corner. They did the development and found a business partner to run the grocery store. A bank branch on the other corner to bring mainstream financial services to a community and enjoy mainstream services. There's a health clinic now that's just been completed on the third corner. And then on the fourth quarter is a movie theater, which also emphasizes my theme of social enterprise because the movie theater is making money as well as providing a nice amenity to that community. More importantly, Beyond Housing stands out for me because they have organized this part of St. Louis County is a collection of lots of small municipalities. And they've organized the 24 mayors of the small towns into a collaborative called 24 for One, which is focused on getting the local high school reaccredited. It lost its accreditation. And so by joining all the mayors together with Beyond Housing as community catalysts, they're working on increasing learning and increasing child outcomes. So in closing, I had a bunch of other examples of community catalysts I was going to share, but it's all in the name of momentum is building around this comprehensive community development movement. We're learning more about what does work, strong nonprofit leadership, serving in a catalytic role, strong partnerships and cross-sector collaboration, resident engagement, and building human and social capital are all elements of success. And it's not just one thing. It can be complicated and messy, but it's really important work. Too many people in communities have been left behind. Too many communities lack the elements of opportunity. And this work is important because we believe that every community in America should be a place of opportunity. So thank you, and thanks for letting me come.